Wayne Besen is executive director of Truth Wins Out, organization that for years has fought efforts to criminalize and stigmatize queerness. He has fought the ex-gay industry, and he's done amazing work, and he's come on this program and talked about it many times in the past. He has a new book, Lies with a Straight Face, exposing the cranks and cons inside the ex-gay industry, and he joins me once again on the program. Welcome back, Wayne.
Hey, great to be on. Thanks.
Yeah, so tell us first about the book and kind of your vision in putting this book together and focusing in on the work that's been done to take on the ex-gay movement.
Well, ex-gay conversion therapy never dies. It just takes a different form. And right now you have conversion therapy outfits, which I call the ex-gay industry, trying to reboot and rebrand from past failures. So I wanted to create a book where all of the history was in one place. And it's a sequel to my first book, which came out 20 years ago. And that was from around the 1950s to 2003. And so much has happened since 2003 to the present day. For example, Exodus International, the largest ex-gay organization in the world, has gone out of business around 2013 after their leader said it never works and nobody has changed. The big Jewish group, Jonah, Jews Offering New Alternatives to Homosexuality, was shut down for committing consumer fraud. A jury actually convicted them in New Jersey. And it goes on and on. So I wanted to ensure, for history's sake and also for today's activists, that they were able to fight and have all the information that occurred during that time period in one place. And that is why I wrote Lies with a Straight Face. And
people should read it, and they can go and order it at truthwinsout.org. And now more than ever, I think it's so important for people to understand what ex-gays are doing, because we're seeing, of course, all of these don't say gay bills and lots of anti-gay and anti-trans legislation across the country. I wanted to talk about Christopher Doyle, another, Truth Wins Out investigation that you have written about. Talk a little bit about who he is and what you've exposed.
Christopher Doyle is probably the most prominent remaining conversion therapist in the United States. He operates as a counselor in Northern Virginia. He's the president of the Institute for Healthy Families. He was on the board of Parents and Friends of Ex-Gays and the founder of Ex-Gay Pride, which mimics LGBTQ pride, except for people who said they have prayed away the gay. So he was a big deal in that world, and he's harming young people. To this day, he's got a very large practice with transgender youth as well. And so this guy, in his sessions, was parading his marriage around as something wonderful, creating himself as a paragon of morality, someone to look up to, and using his family and saying, if you work really hard and you try to change, you could be just like me and have my family. But it turns out, I got a great tip that his divorce was a disaster. And I went down to Virginia to look through the divorce papers in the Loudoun County Court. I thought I'd find a few skeletons. I did not expect a graveyard.
Because he had been promoting his marriage, but then it was known that he'd gotten divorced.
It wasn't. He hid that.
Okay.
Nobody knew about this.
So nobody knew about the divorce. And then what you found out was the reasons for the divorce, which were even worse.
Yes, exactly. And so he hid this divorce. I go down there. Apparently, he went on a vacation in Smyrna Beach, Florida. He pushed his mother-in-law. He attacked his wife. The police had to be called. This resulted in 2 protective orders, one in Florida and one in Virginia. And it gets worse. The divorce papers, he was accused of throwing a heavy mixing bowl at his wife's head while she was pregnant. He bragged of having sex with prostitutes. Remember, this is the head of the Institute for Healthy Families who's telling all the rest of us how to live and holding himself up of this, this paragon of morality and virtue.
And claiming he's ex-gay.
Yes, and claiming he's ex-gay and talking about the sanctity of families and children, while his ex-wife in these papers accused him of taking two of his children by the throat and choking them until she ripped his hands off their throats. And he also might not be the ex-gay he's presenting himself to be. In the exhibits with the court documents, there were text messages, and he was talking to one of his clients, somebody who he had in therapy sessions, as well as someone who was his research assistant. And this research assistant client was calling him daddy and saying, "I love you, daddy." And
Yeah.
he was referring to this man as boo boo.
Yeah, those text messages are like, I'm like, my radar went right off, my gator.
Yeah, I mean, they're a little peculiar, I'd say. And one of them that he said, "Daddy, daddy, I love you," 11 times. 11 to with interspersed with smiley faces and hearts. So there was no
Who says that to their male research assistant?
Yeah, that's like, what kind of research are they doing? I want to know.
Daddy, I love you, heart, heart. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, the research assistant was infamous because of an ex-gay pride. He gave a speech where Boo Boo said, "Hip hip hooray for ex-gays." That was his actual cheer.
Boo Boo is an ex-gay who came up with some stupid slogan.
Yeah, and I don't know, and Daddy apparently approved. So the Christopher Doyle scandal was, I mean, it was mind blowing what happened, and there's even more to it. I can't even say publicly that I found because I need more corroborating evidence.
Well, the story on Truth Wins Out is pretty long. People should go and read it. So you've already got a lot there, but you're saying there's even more.
Yeah, I'm saying that this man should not be practicing conversion therapy. Instead, he should be on a couch with a team of well-qualified therapists trying to help him.
And now, is he still a licensed therapist?
Yeah, he's a licensed therapist in Virginia. He runs
It sounds like his license should be taken away.
It should be. He's in Northern Virginia Christian Counseling. And prior to this, there was a big red flag, by the way, I failed to mention. In his bio for parents and friends of ex-gays, he recounted this instance as a child when his mother had a daycare center, and he actually admitted to molesting, in his words, the girls in his mother's daycare. And I don't know how he wasn't taking the juvenile detention, but my point is this person has a lot of issues, more issues than a New York Magazine stand, and he should not be running a Christian counseling center right now. And yet there he is. And he makes over $200,000 a year messing up LGBTQ kids and telling them that they need to change and be more moral like he is.
And what's so sad is that people are still taking their kids, and you're saying he's now doing this with trans kids, to someone like him, paying big money because they're they're just hopeless at the idea that their kids are queer, and of course they're evangelical Christians, and putting them through this trauma.
Yes, and he made $200,000 a year. He has a 6,000-foot home, and he's getting paid to exploit the pain and suffering of our community. This is somebody who believes in the discredited practice of touch therapy, where he lies on the couch and hugs and touches, or some would say fondling, his clients. In fact, Boo Boo was one of those who bragged about touch therapy.
So wait a minute.
It worked a little too well.
Boo Boo was a client who he did the hug therapy with. According
to Boo Boo, yes. When he went to this therapy outfit, he did this touch therapy, which is known very well for his practice. I mean, he brags about it. He actually thinks it's effective to touch his clients, and any other credible therapist would call that inappropriate behavior. But apparently it's a credible therapy for the ex-gay movement.
And what's the theory behind it, that if I touch you enough, it won't get you off or something? I don't know. Like
the theory, I'm glad you asked. The theory is that you didn't receive the love from your father if you're a gay man. And so it's acting as a surrogate father by hugging you and giving you touch.
That gets us back to Daddy and Boo Boo.
Yes, and that's how that Daddy and Boo Boo came out of that. That was the end result. It's interesting. He became gayer than he was before he entered ex-gay therapy. That's something we see quite often. But, you mentioned all these bizarre techniques, and we just mentioned one, but that's nothing compared to the largest ex-gay program in America right now. It's called Change Movement. It operates out of a fundamentalist Christian non-denominational church in Redding, California. This church has 11,000 members, and there's only 90,000 people in Redding, California. So
Wow.
it's really taken over that town. They have over $60 million a year in annual revenue, this church. And they run this changed movement. This church believes that you can cure cancer and you can even grow back limbs. Like they pray that you can grow back limbs. I'm not even making this up. And you want to hear something really bizarre and despicable? They have these teams that go out so-called hunting on the street to find people who need having hands laid on them to heal them. So if you're, for example, someone who limps and you live in the Redding, California area, they will descend upon you, whether you like it or not, and try to heal you and touch you and put their hands all over you, so you'll no longer limp. This is what's going on, and this is the genesis of Changed Movement, which is now the largest. The wannabe New Exodus International, who, by the way, has met with many members of Congress and lobbies Washington. So this is no benign.
No, and I'm sure, especially now, as Republican politicians are so focused on stopping gender-affirming care and battling against equality for trans kids, all of this part of the ex-gay movement, ex-trans, right, is probably in demand.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more. We saw Matt Walsh talk about it, the right-wing host, this week and promote conversion therapy just a couple days ago, which was disturbing because he has a large audience. We may see this in the Supreme Court because of this fascination and fixation on religious liberty. We have laws passed in 22 states where they ban conversion therapy for minors because it is torture, because it is unethical, and it's rejected by every respected medical and mental health organization. However, it's being challenged by the Christian right, who have unlimited money. And they're having some success. Mm-hmm. They rolled back the laws in Florida, for example, in certain cities in Florida. And they actually, they had to, they had to pay the therapist for damages. And they're doing it under the guise of free speech because they're religious. Apparently, there are no ethical standards in medicine if you're religious. You can be a therapist. If you're not religious, there's standards that you have to live by. But if you just claim that you are a religious counselor, that you found Jesus, then you apparently can do whatever you want to somebody. And it's okay under the guise of free speech. Wow. And this may see its way, it was an article in USA Today saying that could see its way to the Supreme Court. And I don't know if that bodes well, given I don't know, between you and me, I don't think Amy Coney Barrett's going to be voting for our side, nor Alito or Clarence Thomas.
Right.
I mean, if Amy Coney Barrett, she might actually practice it on the side for all we know.
Wayne Besen is my guest, and he is the author of Lies with a Straight Face, Exposing the Cranks and Cons Inside the Ex-Gay Industry. Also, executive director of Truth Wins Out. Truthwinsout.org is where you can go and also order his book as well. Wayne, I want to go back to Christopher Dowling, and how did he cover up his divorce? I mean, if he's supposed to be this paragon within the community there, weren't people wondering where his wife was?
Well, he's out in Northern Virginia, around Leesburg area. And so he doesn't have much scrutiny on a daily basis. So this is something where we just wouldn't know unless it was announced. So it's not like he's in New York or Washington or LA and going to different parties and suddenly, oh, where's your wife? We just really wouldn't know. And his clients wouldn't know because she's not in the office anyway. So it was very easy for him to hide this. And I would not have known. I follow this very closely. I talked to former clients of his, one who tried to commit suicide after being in his care. And none of them had any idea. It was very, very easy to hide. But the court papers were it was a treasure chest of, as he would call it, sin and depravity.
And you spoke with his ex-wife.
I did give her a call. Yes, I did speak with her. She was reluctant to talk, and I couldn't get much from her because there's still litigation that's ongoing with a divorce. And she's also, I mean, what I could extrapolate, scared. I mean, this guy is
Right.
someone who threw a mixing bowl at her head while she was pregnant. So
Right.
this was somebody that choked the children. This is someone who pushed
Right.
her mother-in-law down, which resulted in 2 restraining orders.
Horrible.
So this isn't someone. This is not somebody to take lightly in terms of violence.
Right. Wayne, such important work. Everybody should go read the story of Christopher Dowling, and also, of course, the book Lies with a Straight Face, Exposing the Cranks and Cons Inside the Ex-Gay Industry. It is truthwinsout.org. Wayne Besen, always great to have you on. It's been a while, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. I love your show. It's fantastic. It's an honor to be on.
Thank you, Wayne, who's done really great work, folks. And go to Truth Wins Out and check it out. And follow him on Twitter at Wayne Besen, Besen. We're back in a couple of minutes.
Michelangelo Signorile on SiriusXM.